Welcome to Dreamy Mystery. Here's what makes no sense about one of humanity's most enduring legends, Atlantis. We have a story, detailed and vivid, from arguably the most influential philosopher in Western history, Plato himself, describing a technologically advanced, ethically complex civilization that vanished overnight. Yet, despite centuries of searching, despite countless expeditions, despite the sheer, compelling specificity of his account, there is absolutely no definitive physical proof that Atlantis ever existed. It's a colossal paradox, a ghost of a civilization whispered about in ancient texts, inspiring generations of dreamers and scientists alike, but leaving behind not a single shard of pottery, not a collapsed column, not even a faint echo in the geological record that we can definitively point to. Think about it for a second. We uncover cities buried under volcanic ash, like Pompeii, frozen in time. We decode hieroglyphs describing pharaohs and their empires. We sift through desert sands to find forgotten trade routes. But for Atlantis, a civilization supposedly grand enough to challenge ancient Athens, a maritime power of immense sophistication, all we have are words. Just words. How could such a magnificent empire, described with such precision, its concentric canals, its exotic metals, its advanced engineering, its very ethical decline, simply vanish without a trace, leaving only a philosophical parable to tantalize us? This isn't just a story, it's a profound challenge to our understanding of ancient history, human ingenuity, and the very nature of memory and myth. It begs the question, what if Plato wasn't entirely fabricating a philosophical allegory? What if, somewhere beneath the waves, or buried under millennia of sediment, there lies a truth that could force us to rewrite every textbook, every timeline, every assumption we hold about the cradle of civilization? If you're finding yourself drawn into this deep dive into history's greatest mystery, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future episodes. And I'm always curious. Drop a comment letting me know what city and time zone you're watching from. There's something special about knowing this story is reaching people all over the world, connecting us across time zones with a shared fascination for the unknown. Let's start with the obvious question nobody asks enough. Where does the story of Atlantis actually come from? It originates solely from the writings of the Greek philosopher Plato, specifically in two of his dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias. These texts, composed around 360 BCE, present not just a passing reference, but an incredibly detailed narrative that has fascinated and frustrated scholars for millennia. Plato attributes the story to his great-grandfather Critias, who heard it from his grandfather, who in turn heard it from the Athenian statesman Solon. Solon, one of the 7 sages of Greece, a man renowned for his wisdom and his foundational legal reforms, supposedly learned about Atlantis during his travels in Egypt around 590 BCE from a group of very ancient, very wise Egyptian priests in the city of Sais. Now, this is where it gets genuinely interesting. The priest told Solon that Athens, in its prime, had existed 9,000 years before Solon's own time. Think about that time frame. 9,000 years before 590 BCE puts us squarely in the Neolithic period, around 9,590 BCE, an era we generally associate with hunter-gatherers and the very dawn of agriculture, not advanced civilizations. And it was this ancient Athens, a virtuous and powerful city, that stood as the sole bulwark against the formidable empire of Atlantis. The Atlanteans, according to the Egyptian priests, were a mighty naval power, ruling over a vast domain that included their own island, other islands, and parts of the continent opposite the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. Their ambition was immense, to conquer all of Europe and Asia. But the ancient Athenians, in a truly heroic display of military prowess and moral fortitude, defeated the Atlantean invaders. Shortly after this victory, both civilizations met a catastrophic end. Atlantis was swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of earthquakes and floods, and ancient Athens suffered a similar, though less dramatic, fate. This is the foundational narrative, the bedrock upon which all subsequent Atlantean lore is built. Plato's description of Atlantis in the Critias is nothing short of breathtaking. He paints a picture of an island larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined, situated in the Atlantic Ocean, a true continent-sized landmass. Its capital city was a marvel of engineering and aesthetics. Imagine this: a central island, home to the royal palace, and a magnificent temple dedicated to Poseidon, the patron god of Atlantis. This central island was surrounded by alternating rings of water and land, 3 of each, connected by bridges and canals wide enough for ships to navigate. The Atlanteans dug a great canal, 300 feet wide, that connected the outermost ring of water directly to the sea, allowing vessels to sail right into the heart of the city. The sheer scale of their construction was staggering. They built docks, harbours, and huge breakwaters to protect their ships. The city's buildings were adorned with a metal called orichalcum, described as flashing with a red light. Second only to gold in value. This mysterious metal, which has never been definitively identified by modern science, was supposedly mined on the island itself, along with other precious minerals. The Atlanteans had an abundance of resources, vast forests providing timber for their ships and buildings, fertile plains yielding 2 harvests a year, and exotic animals, including elephants, which were native to the island. Their society was highly structured, ruled by 10 kings, descendants of Poseidon himself, who governed their respective districts and met periodically in the central temple to deliberate and uphold the laws inscribed on an orichalcum pillar. For generations they lived virtuously, valuing honour and wisdom over material wealth. But then, as Plato warns, human nature took its inevitable turn. This is where the story shifts from a description of a lost paradise to a cautionary tale. Plato recounts how the divine nature within the Atlanteans began to fade, diluted by too much mortal intermingling. They became consumed by greed, power, and imperial ambition, losing their humility and their sense of justice. It was this moral decay, this hubris, that ultimately provoked the wrath of the gods, specifically Zeus, who called a council to decide their fate, and then the cataclysm. In a single terrible day and night, Atlantis was engulfed by the sea, sunk by an earthquake, and became an impossible barrier of mud to voyagers sailing from hence to any part of the ocean. This dramatic, almost cinematic end cemented Atlantis not just as a lost civilization, but as a symbol of pride, a warning against unchecked technological progress and moral corruption. Plato's account, whether intended as literal history or a philosophical allegory about the ideal state versus the corrupt one, immediately captured the imagination of the ancient world. It wasn't just a bedtime story, it became a historical puzzle. Could such a place have existed? The very precision of Plato's details, the dimensions, the locations, the specific materials, made it irresistible. It sparked debates even among his contemporaries, with some, like Aristotle, dismissing it as pure fiction, while others pondered its possibility. This single narrative, passed down through millennia, has kept the dream of Atlantis alive, transforming it from a philosopher's teaching tool into perhaps the greatest unsolved mystery of ancient history, a tantalizing whisper that humanity was once capable of something far beyond what we currently understand. So, we've laid the groundwork. The incredible detailed story of Atlantis, born from the mind of Plato, supposedly relayed by Egyptian priest to Solon. We've explored its fantastical description, its advanced civilization, and its dramatic demise. But here's the thing about a story this compelling. It doesn't stay confined to ancient texts. It spills out into the real world, inspiring expeditions, fueling scientific theories, and even influencing our understanding of human potential. In the next chapter, we're going to dive into the centuries-long quest to find Atlantis, examining the various theories about its possible location and the early, often eccentric adventurers who dedicated their lives to uncovering its secrets. We'll explore the tantalizing hints that perhaps, just perhaps, there's more to Plato's tale than mere fiction, and how the search for Atlantis became a search for a lost golden age. We ended our last journey standing at the precipice of a colossal paradox, a story so meticulously detailed, so profoundly impactful, yet utterly devoid of tangible proof. Plato, the venerable philosopher, bequeathed us a narrative of Atlantis that feels too real to be mere fiction, yet too elusive to be historical fact. We're left with the ghost of a civilization, whispered into existence by ancient priests, echoed by Solon, and immortalized by Plato. But what are we to make of this ghost? Is it a figment of philosophical imagination, or the spectral remnant of a forgotten empire? This, dear explorers, is where the true intellectual adventure begins. This is where we confront the very core of the Atlantis enigma. Was Plato telling us a historical truth, or was he weaving an elaborate allegory? Think about it. On one hand, we have the sheer specificity of Plato's account. He names names: Chrysias, Solon, the Egyptian priests of Sais. He gives us dates, placing the Atlantean War and subsequent catastrophe 9,000 years before his own time, which would be around 9,590 BCE, an astonishingly precise figure for an ancient myth. He describes geographical features, an island larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined, located beyond the Pillars of Hercules. He details the Atlantean capital with its concentric rings of land and water, its canals, its unique metallurgy, orichalcum flashing with a red light, and its governance under 10 kings descended from Poseidon. This isn't the vague, amorphous stuff of typical mythology. This is a blueprint, a historical record, presented with the gravitas of a geopolitical drama. Plato himself, in Timaeus, asserts the truth of the account. He writes, quote, "He presents it not as a fable, but as a tradition preserved by the Egyptians and passed down through generations. Why would a philosopher renowned for his pursuit of truth, for his rigorous logical arguments, invent such a comprehensive lie and then insist on its veracity? Why would he root it in a chain of esteemed historical figures, Solon, the wise lawgiver, and the ancient learned priests of Sais, if it were purely a fictional construct? The very act of attributing the story to such credible sources lends it an undeniable weight, a sense of authenticity that continues to resonate with us across millennia. Yet, on the other hand, the counter-argument is equally compelling. Plato was, first and foremost, a philosopher. His dialogues are replete with allegories, myths, and thought experiments designed to illustrate complex philosophical concepts. The most famous example, of course, is the allegory of the cave from the Republic, a powerful metaphor for enlightenment and the nature of reality. Could Atlantis be another such construct? A grand narrative designed to critique the moral decay of his own society, to extol the virtues of ancient Athens, and to warn against the corrupting influence of power and wealth? Consider the moral arc of the Atlantean civilization. They begin as a virtuous, divinely guided people, technologically advanced but ethically sound. Over time, their divine spark wanes, replaced by human greed and hubris. They become imperialistic, seeking to dominate the world. This fall from grace, this descent into moral depravity, is a classic Platonic theme, echoing his concerns about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the erosion of civic virtue. The virtuous ancient Athens, standing as a bulwark against the Atlantean onslaught, perfectly embodies Plato's ideal state, a society built on justice, courage, and wisdom. And their ultimate destruction by divine wrath serves as a powerful cautionary tale, a cosmic judgment against hubris. So, we stand at a crossroads. Is Atlantis a profound philosophical allegory, a masterclass in moral storytelling designed to instruct and warn? Or is it a genuine piece of lost history, a memory preserved by an ancient culture and relayed to a philosopher who, despite his genius, was merely a conduit for a truth far older than himself? The answer to this question, you see, changes everything. If Atlantis is just a story, then it remains a magnificent testament to human imagination and philosophical insight. But if it is real, if Plato, Solon, and the priests of Sais were indeed recounting an actual historical event, then our entire understanding of human civilization, its origins, its capabilities, and its trajectory is fundamentally flawed. It means that advanced societies existed thousands of years before our accepted timelines, possessing technologies and organizational structures that defy our current models of prehistory. It means that the Sastmas, quote one, might need a radical re-evaluation. This is the tantalizing prospect that has captivated adventurers, scholars, and dreamers for centuries. This is the intellectual itch that demands to be scratched. If Atlantis was real, where did it go, and why have we not found it? The search for Atlantis has taken us to the far corners of the globe, driven by the belief that such a detailed account could not be entirely fabricated. If Plato provided coordinates, quote, which we generally understand to be the Strait of Gibraltar, then the logical place to start looking is the Atlantic Ocean. And indeed, the Atlantic has yielded some of the most enduring, if controversial, theories. Some have pointed to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a vast underwater mountain range, suggesting that Atlantis might have been a landmass that subsided along this tectonic boundary. The sheer scale of such a geological event, however, presents enormous challenges to our understanding of plate tectonics and sea level changes over the last 11,000 years. Others have looked closer to home within the Mediterranean itself, proposing that Plato's dates might have been misinterpreted, perhaps by a factor of 10. This leads us to the Minoan civilization on the island of Thera, modern-day Santorini, which suffered a catastrophic volcanic eruption around 1600 BCE. The eruption created a caldera, swallowing much of the island, and generated tsunamis that devastated surrounding coastal areas. The Minoans were an advanced seafaring culture, known for their sophisticated art and engineering. Could the story of Atlantis be a distorted memory of the Minoan cataclysm, filtered through millennia and embellished by Egyptian priests? It's a compelling theory, aligning with a sudden, devastating destruction, but it struggles with Plato's explicit geographical placement and his much older timeline. Further afield, the theories become even more diverse, stretching from the Caribbean, with tantalizing, though often debunked, underwater stone formations like the Bimini Road, to the coast of Africa, where some have proposed the Risha structure in Mauritania as a possible terrestrial remnant, its concentric circles mirroring Plato's description of the capital city, albeit on land and not submerged. There are even more speculative ideas, placing Atlantis in Antarctica before the continent was covered by ice, or in the distant reaches of the Pacific. Each proposed location, each theory, carries with it a blend of tantalizing clues and frustrating inconsistencies. Each attempts to reconcile Plato's vivid narrative with the geological, archaeological, and historical records we possess. But the very act of searching, the persistent human drive to uncover this lost civilization, speaks volumes about the power of Plato's words. It tells us that deep down, many of us believe there's more to this story than just a philosopher's flight of fancy. The challenges, of course, are immense. The Earth's surface has changed dramatically over the last 11,000 years. Sea levels were significantly lower during the last glacial period, meaning vast swathes of continental shelf that are now submerged were once dry land. Finding an entire city, let alone an island, fem or quote 3 under miles of ocean, buried beneath sediment or fractured by seismic activity, is a monumental task. It requires cutting-edge sonar technology, deep-sea submersibles, and an understanding of ancient geology that is still developing. And even then, what are we looking for? A city of orichalcum? A specific architectural style? How would we definitively identify it as Atlantis without a clear, undeniable inscription or artifact? This is why the search continues, not just as a romantic quest for a lost utopia, but as a scientific endeavour that could fundamentally reshape our understanding of human ingenuity and the true antiquity of complex societies. Imagine the implications. If a technologically advanced civilization existed 11,000 years ago, what does that say about our own progress? What knowledge might have been lost? What lessons might we learn from their rise and their catastrophic fall? The very existence of Atlantis challenges our linear view of history, suggesting instead a cyclical pattern of growth, decline, and cataclysm, where advanced knowledge can be gained and then utterly erased, leaving only echoes in the oldest myths. It forces us to question the completeness of our historical record, to consider the vast blank spaces in our understanding of the distant past. So we've laid the groundwork. We've wrestled with the profound dilemma of Plato's intent, and we've glimpsed the global scope of the search for this legendary land. In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into the specific scientific and archaeological arguments for and against some of the most compelling Atlantis theories. We'll explore the tantalizing clues that have fueled generations of seekers, and we'll confront the formidable obstacles that stand between us and the potential truth of the lost civilization. Prepare yourself, because the waters of history are about to get very, very deep. The mystery, you see, isn't just about a lost city. It's about a lost era. It's about the very foundations of human history as we understand them, trembling under the weight of a legend so vivid, so detailed, that it refuses to be relegated to mere fiction. We've touched upon the colossal paradox, Plato's meticulous account versus the deafening silence of archaeological records. But what exactly did Plato tell us? What are the specifics that keep historians, geologists, and adventurers alike poring over ancient texts and sonar maps, year after year, century after century? Let's not just talk about a detailed legend. Let's immerse ourselves in the breathtaking blueprint Plato laid out, a blueprint that paints a picture of a civilization so advanced it seems utterly impossible for its alleged time. Imagine, if you will, an island empire. Quote 5, situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules. This isn't just a vague land mass. Plato gives us a geographical anchor, a massive land bridge connecting to a vast continent, a place of fertile plains, towering mountains, and abundant resources. Now zoom in on the capital city, the heart of Atlantis itself. This isn't just a cluster of huts or a simple walled town. Plato describes a marvel of urban planning and engineering that would put many modern cities to shame. Picture concentric rings of land and water, alternating, creating a unique defensive and aesthetic masterpiece. 2 rings of land, 3 of water, all interconnected by meticulously constructed bridges. The outermost water ring, a grand canal, was wide enough to accommodate the largest ships, leading directly to the open sea, and within these rings, a vibrant, bustling metropolis. The central island, the very core of Atlantis, was where the royal palace stood, a structure of unparalleled grandeur. It was here, within these sacred grounds, that the Atlanteans erected a magnificent temple dedicated to Poseidon, their patron deity. Imagine its sheer scale, an outer wall of brass gleaming in the sun, an inner wall adorned with tin, and the temple itself, covered entirely in orichalcum flashing with a red light, a material described as, quote, 6. Think about that. A metal so valuable, so distinctive, that it became a hallmark of Atlantean power and wealth. Orichalcum. What was it? A natural alloy? A synthesized metal? A mere literary device? The very mention of it ignites the imagination, hinting at metallurgical knowledge far beyond what we typically attribute to the Bronze Age, let alone the Stone Age. But the engineering marvels didn't stop at defensive rings and opulent temples. Plato tells us of a vast network of canals, not only for defense and navigation but also for irrigation. These canals crisscrossed the fertile plains, bringing water to every corner of their agricultural heartland. Hot and cold springs, naturally occurring, were channeled and integrated into the city's infrastructure, providing public baths, separate for kings, citizens, and even animals. Imagine the sophistication required to manage such a complex water system, to build aqueducts and conduits that could harness geothermal energy for practical, everyday use. Thousands of years before the Romans, thousands of years before the Greeks themselves. The Atlantean society was equally complex and stratified. Plato describes a powerful ruling class, descendants of Poseidon himself, who governed with a strict code of laws. Their military was formidable, their navy unrivaled, capable of deploying an armada of 100-200 ships and an army of 100,000 men. This wasn't just a powerful city-state. It was an imperial power, stretching its influence across the Atlantic and into the Mediterranean, a true hegemon of its age. Now, here's where the narrative truly challenges our conventional understanding of history. We're talking about a civilization with advanced urban planning, sophisticated metallurgy, orichalcum, complex hydraulic engineering, and a powerful, organized military, all thriving around 9590 BCE. What do our archaeological textbooks tell us about this period? They speak of hunter-gatherer societies, nascent agriculture in a few isolated pockets, rudimentary tools, and the very beginnings of settled communities. The idea of a global maritime empire, complete with monumental architecture and a highly organized social structure, existing nearly 12,000 years ago, is nothing short of revolutionary. It shatters the established timeline of human development. If Atlantis was real, it means that our understanding of the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, and the very progression of human civilization is fundamentally flawed. It means that advanced knowledge, perhaps even technologies we consider modern, were achieved, lost, and then painstakingly rediscovered over millennia. Think about the implications. A lost golden age, not just of myth, but of tangible technological achievement. It would force us to ask, what else don't we know? What other chapters of human ingenuity have been erased by cataclysm and the relentless march of time? This isn't just about finding a sunken city. It's about finding a missing link in humanity's story, a link that could redefine our origins. It suggests that the cycle of civilization might be far older, far more complex, and far more prone to collapse and rebirth than we currently acknowledge. The very notion of pre-Diluvian or antediluvian civilizations, societies that existed before the great flood myths common across cultures, moves from the realm of fringe theory to a plausible, albeit still unproven, historical reality. But Plato's account isn't just a dry list of architectural wonders and military might. It's a profound moral tale, a cautionary narrative woven into the fabric of these incredible descriptions. The Atlanteans, initially virtuous, living in harmony with their divine nature, possessed immense wealth and power, but they used it wisely for the common good. Their land yielded all manner of fragrance and fruits and herbs. Their people were noble, just, and content. However, as generations passed, the divine blood within them became diluted, and their mortal nature began to assert itself. They succumbed to greed, to hubris, to an insatiable hunger for more power and dominion. Their once noble ambitions turned to conquest. Their advanced civilization became an engine of empire. This moral decay, this internal corruption, is what ultimately sealed their fate. It's a classic narrative arc, one that resonates deeply with philosophical teachings about the corrupting influence of unchecked power. And so, Zeus, observing their increasing wickedness, gathered the other gods to deliberate their punishment. The divine judgment was swift and cataclysmic. In a single day and night of misfortune, Atlantis, along with its formidable empire, was swallowed by the sea, disappearing beneath the waves in a violent flurry of earthquakes and floods. This sudden, dramatic end serves as a powerful testament to Plato's philosophical message, but it also provides a vivid, almost cinematic description of a geological event that, if real, would have reshaped the very landscape of the Atlantic. So, we are left with this incredible tapestry, a story of unprecedented technological advancement, immense power, profound moral decline, and a cataclysmic end. It's a story that feels both epic and intimately human, a narrative that speaks to the highest aspirations and the deepest flaws of civilization. Whether you interpret it as a philosophical allegory or a lost historical record, the details are too rich, too specific, too insistent to simply ignore. This is why the search for Atlantis continues with such fervour. It's not just about proving Plato right, it's about challenging our preconceptions, pushing the boundaries of what we believe possible for ancient humanity, and perhaps, just perhaps, unearthing a truth that could send ripples through every history book on the planet. The ghost of this civilization, magnificent and tragic, haunts the depths of the ocean and the fringes of our collective imagination, beckoning us to solve its ultimate riddle. In the next chapter, we're going to delve into some of the most compelling theories and proposed locations for Atlantis, moving from the purely conceptual to the tantalizingly tangible. We'll explore the evidence, the arguments, and the sheer audacity of those who believe they've found the key to unlocking this ancient secret. Get ready, because the search for Atlantis takes us to some truly unexpected places. So, we've laid out the details, haven't we? We've walked through Plato's meticulously crafted narrative, a story brimming with architectural wonders, advanced technology, and a moral decay that reads like a cautionary tale etched in the very fabric of time. We've wrestled with the profound implications of its existence, pushing back against the comfortable confines of established history. But now we arrive at the colossal paradox, the undeniable elephant in the room that stops most conventional scholars in their tracks, the ghost in the geological record. If Atlantis was real, if it truly was an empire, quote 14, if its capital city was a marvel of concentric rings and canals, adorned with temples of orichalcum, where is it? Where are the ruins? Where are the artifacts? Where is the undeniable physical proof that would shatter our historical timelines and force a complete re-evaluation of human civilization? This, dear reader, is the precipice upon which the entire Atlantis debate balances. On one side, we have Plato, a philosopher revered for his intellectual rigour, presenting a story he insists is not a myth, but a, quote, 15. On the other, we have millennia of silence, an archaeological void where a civilization of unparalleled grandeur should have left an indelible mark. Think about it. We've found remnants of civilizations far less grand, far less technologically advanced, and far older than 9590 BCE. We've unearthed tools and settlements from hunter-gatherers, pieced together fragments of early agricultural societies, and meticulously excavated the birthplaces of our earliest cities. Yet, of an empire that could challenge ancient Athens and dominate the seas, an empire described with such astonishing specificity, we find nothing. Just words. Or do we? This is where we must challenge our assumptions, where we must peel back the layers of conventional thinking. Is Ya, quote 16, truly synonymous with Kern, quote 17? Or could it mean, quote 18-teen, or perhaps, even more provocatively, quote 19-teen? Let's revisit the cataclysm, that single, terrifying, quote 20, that swallowed Atlantis whole. Plato describes an event so sudden, so devastating, that it wiped an entire continent-sized island from the face of the Earth, leaving behind only impassable mud. What kind of geological event could accomplish such a feat? Our planet is a living, breathing entity, constantly shifting and reshaping itself. We know of massive earthquakes, capable of levelling cities and triggering devastating tsunamis. We understand the immense power of volcanic eruptions, like the one that consumed Pompeii or the colossal eruption of Thera, modern-day Santorini, which reshaped the Aegean landscape and possibly inspired the myth of Atlantis for some researchers, despite its very different location and timing. We've witnessed the slow, inexorable rise and fall of sea levels over millennia, driven by glacial cycles, but, quote 21, that speaks to something truly cataclysmic, a sudden, massive subsidence event, perhaps triggered by an earthquake of unimaginable magnitude along a major fault line. Could a vast landmass simply sink? Geologically, large-scale, rapid subsidence is rare, but not entirely impossible in areas of intense tectonic activity. Subduction zones, where one plate slides beneath another, can create immense pressures and sudden shifts. What if Atlantis was situated on a particularly unstable crustal block, primed for a spectacular collapse? And then there's the detail of the impassable mud. This isn't just a sunken city, it's a site rendered utterly inaccessible, a vast, shallow grave of silt and sediment. This particular descriptor is fascinating. It suggests a massive displacement of seabed, perhaps a colossal underwater landslide, or even the liquefaction of vast tracts of land during an earthquake, turning solid ground into a slurry. If the island was indeed located in the Atlantic beyond the Pillars of Hercules, then the depths of the ocean are immense. A continent-sized island sinking into those abyssal plains would certainly be lost to sight. But the year's quote 23 detail complicates that picture. It implies a shallower basin, or a specific kind of geological process that would create such a vast, impenetrable barrier. This brings us to the location conundrum, the enduring riddle of quote 24. For centuries, this phrase has been interpreted as the Strait of Gibraltar, the narrow gateway separating the Mediterranean Sea from the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. If we take Plato literally, Atlantis must lie somewhere in that immense, largely unexplored body of water. But where? The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a colossal underwater mountain range, is a popular theoretical spot, but it's far too deep, far too geologically active for a stable civilization to have flourished on its peaks, let alone sunk into its trenches. Could there have been a large, stable landmass in the Atlantic that has since vanished? The geological record as we currently understand it doesn't support this. This has led to a proliferation of alternative theories, each attempting to reconcile Plato's details with known geography and archaeology. Some point to the aforementioned Thera, the volcanic island whose cataclysmic eruption around 1600 BCE devastated the Minoan civilization. It was an advanced culture, and its destruction was sudden and dramatic. But the timing is off by nearly 8,000 years, and geographically it's firmly within the Aegean Sea, not beyond the Pillars. Others look to the Rheos structure, the Eye of the Sahara in Mauritania, a breathtaking geological formation that, from above, uncannily resembles Plato's concentric city description. It's a striking visual match, but it's inland, in a desert, and a natural geological dome, not a sunken city. How could it have been beyond the Pillars, and then sunk? These theories, while intriguing, often require significant liberties with Plato's text, bending his geography or chronology to fit a pre-existing site. What if our understanding of the R-29 itself is too rigid? What if, in the mists of antiquity, that designation referred to something else entirely? Or what if, as some audacious theorists suggest, the very geography of the world was different 11 to 500 years ago, before some unknown event reshaped coastlines and shifted landmasses? This is a truly mind-bending possibility, one that challenges the very foundations of geological stability. And let's not forget that timeline, 9,000 years before Solon's time, placing Atlantis squarely in 9590 BCE. This is the heart of the challenge. This is the period we generally associate with the end of the last ice age, the dawn of the Mesolithic era, when humans were still primarily hunter-gatherers, living in small nomadic groups. The idea of a sprawling, technologically advanced seafaring empire flourishing at this time is a direct contradiction to everything we think we know about human development. Yet, Plato's source, the Egyptian priests of Sais, were described as very ancient, very wise, keepers of profound historical knowledge. How did they know about an event 9,000 years in their past? This implies an unbroken chain of oral tradition, or perhaps a system of record-keeping far more sophisticated and enduring than we currently acknowledge for that period. It hints at the possibility of a forgotten global network of knowledge, a shared understanding of deep time that has been lost to us. Could Plato's 9,000 years be literal, a precise historical marker preserved through the ages, or could it be a symbolic number, a vastly exaggerated figure meant to convey extreme antiquity? The precision with which it's given, however, argues against mere symbolism. Then there's the enigmatic metal, orichalcum. Plato describes it as, quote, 32, mined from Atlantis itself, second only to gold in value, and used to adorn their temples and palaces. What was it? Was it a naturally occurring alloy, perhaps a unique copper-zinc alloy that glowed in a particular way? Or a lost metallurgical process, a secret art of metalworking that has vanished from human memory? Could it have been an exotic element, a mineral unique to Atlantis now lost beneath the waves? Or was it, as some suggest, a metaphor, a philosophical ideal rather than a physical substance? If orichalcum was real, its discovery would be a colossal piece of evidence, a tangible link to Plato's astonishing account. Imagine unearthing a piece of metal, flashing with a crimson light that defies all known metallurgy. The implications would be staggering. These are not trivial questions. They are profound challenges to our established understanding of history, geology, and human potential. The absence of physical proof for Atlantis is not merely a lack of evidence, it is a gaping hole in the fabric of our historical narrative, a silence that screams louder than any discovered artifact. It forces us to confront the limits of our current scientific tools and our preconceived notions about the past. The ghost in the geological record demands our attention. It asks us to consider that perhaps, just perhaps, our map of ancient history is incomplete, that there are vast, uncharted territories of time waiting to be discovered. It challenges us to look beyond the surface, to question the accepted truths, and to entertain the possibility that the greatest story ever told might not be a myth at all, but a forgotten chapter of human history, buried beneath the waves, waiting for us to find it. In the next chapter, we will delve into the human fascination with Atlantis, the relentless quest to find it, and the myriad theories that have emerged from this enduring mystery. We'll explore how this ancient tale continues to inspire, provoke, and challenge us, even in the face of overwhelming skepticism. Because even without concrete proof, the idea of Atlantis has profoundly shaped our culture, our imagination, and our relentless desire to uncover the secrets of our past. We've peeled back the layers of Plato's remarkable account. We've marvelled at the descriptions of a civilization so advanced, so grand, it seems ripped from the pages of science fiction. We've wrestled with the mind-bending timeline, a flourishing empire existing when our history books tell us humanity was barely scratching out an existence in caves. And we've grappled with the elusive geography, the tantalizing clues that lead us down rabbit holes from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean, only to find no definitive home. But here's where the rubber meets the road, isn't it? Here's where the dream of Atlantis collides with the undeniable, unyielding reality of our physical world. Because despite the captivating narrative, despite the detailed descriptions, despite the tantalizing hints, and the passionate belief of countless seekers, one colossal, undeniable truth remains. We have no definitive, verifiable physical evidence. Think about it. We're talking about an island. Quote 33. We're talking about a capital city with concentric rings, massive harbours, intricate canals, and structures built with a metal that glowed with a red light. We're talking about a civilization that wielded immense naval power, that waged war against an equally formidable ancient Athens. And yet the geological record, the archaeological digs, the deep-sea explorations, they all remain stubbornly, frustratingly silent. Where are the ruins? Where are the unique artifacts? Where are the telltale seismic signatures of such a cataclysmic event, not just localized, but on a scale sufficient to swallow an entire landmass? This isn't a small fishing village we're searching for. This is, by Plato's account, an entire continent-sized island, a global superpower of its time. Its disappearance, if literal, should have left an indelible scar, a gaping wound in the Earth's memory. But we find nothing. A ghost in the geological record indeed. This profound absence of evidence is the bedrock upon which mainstream science builds its skepticism, and frankly, it's a powerful argument. When we look at the established archaeological timeline, the consensus is clear. Advanced urban planning, sophisticated metallurgy, especially for a metal like orichalcum, complex societal structures, and long-distance naval capabilities simply did not exist on this planet in 9590 BCE. That era, the late Paleolithic or early Neolithic, was a time of hunter-gatherers, of nascent agriculture, of rudimentary tools fashioned from stone and bone. The idea of a global maritime empire complete with monumental architecture and a unique glowing alloy existing at the same time is, to put it mildly, a colossal paradox. It doesn't just challenge our understanding of history, it shatters it. Now, let's consider the mechanics of its demise. Plato describes a single day and night of misfortune, a cataclysm of earthquakes and floods that caused Atlantis to be swallowed up by the sea and vanished. Geologically speaking, for a landmass of that scale to disappear so completely, so swiftly, requires an event of unimaginable magnitude. Plate tectonics operate on timescales of millions of years, shaping continents gradually. While sudden, localized seismic events are common, the complete submergence of an island the size of Atlantis in 24 hours strains the very limits of geological plausibility. Could a massive underwater landslide triggered by an earthquake have caused such an event? Perhaps, but the sheer volume of displaced earth and water would be immense, leaving behind vast observable evidence on the seafloor. And what about the impassable mud Plato mentions, preventing navigation? This suggests a shallowing of the sea, not a deepening, which adds another layer of geological complexity to an already impossible scenario. So, we stand at a crossroads. On one side, we have Plato, a philosopher of immense repute, presenting a detailed, compelling narrative, attributing it to a chain of credible sources. Solon, the wise Athenian lawgiver, who heard it from the very ancient, very wise Egyptian priests of Sais. These priests, we are told, possessed records spanning thousands of years, far beyond the memory of the Greeks. On the other side, we have the entirety of modern archaeology, geology, and anthropology, which, with all their advanced tools and techniques, find no trace. This is where the what if truly takes hold, isn't it? Because if Atlantis were real, if Plato's account was a literal record of a lost civilization, then everything we think we know about human history, about the origins of technology, about the very trajectory of human development, would have to be fundamentally rewritten. Imagine the implications. We would have to accept that sophisticated engineering, advanced metallurgy, and complex social structures existed not thousands, but tens of thousands of years earlier than currently believed. We would have to re-evaluate every archaeological site, every theory of cultural diffusion, every understanding of ancient human capabilities. The, quote 39, as we conceive it, would become a misnomer, a period where, in one corner of the world, a civilization of unparalleled grandeur was rising and falling, completely unknown to the rest of developing humanity. The very concept of, quote 40 says, would be called into question. Did humanity achieve incredible feats, only to lose that knowledge in a cataclysm, forcing us to start almost from scratch? Was Atlantis a peak that we, in our modern era, are only now beginning to rival? The mysterious orichalcum, flashing with a red light, becomes more than just a unique metal. It becomes a symbol of lost technology, a tantalizing hint at scientific knowledge we might not rediscover for centuries. And what does this mean for our understanding of ourselves? The story of Atlantis is not just one of technological marvel. It is, crucially, a cautionary tale. It speaks of a people initially virtuous, blessed by the gods, who succumbed to greed, hubris, and moral decay. Their immense power, their vast wealth, ultimately corrupted them, leading to their divine punishment. If Atlantis was real, then this moral lesson, preserved by Plato, becomes an actual historical warning, a testament to the cyclical nature of human ambition and downfall. It would suggest that civilizations, no matter how advanced, can be fragile, susceptible to internal rot, and capable of vanishing without a trace, leaving behind only legends. The persistence of the Atlantis myth, despite the overwhelming lack of physical proof, is perhaps its most profound legacy. It speaks to a deep human need to believe in something more, something lost, something grander than our documented past. It taps into our collective imagination, our inherent curiosity, and our willingness to challenge established narratives. It asks us to consider, what if the history we've been taught is incomplete? What if there are chapters missing, entire civilizations erased, leaving only echoes in ancient texts and whispered legends? We are, in essence, confronting a colossal intellectual challenge. Do we dismiss Plato's account as a brilliant philosophical allegory, a masterwork of fiction designed to impart a moral lesson? Or do we, despite the monumental scientific hurdles, dare to entertain the possibility that a vast ancient civilization, lost to the mists of time and the depths of the ocean, truly existed? The implications of either answer are staggering. If it's allegory, it's a testament to Plato's genius. If it's history, it's a testament to the boundless, terrifying, and awe-inspiring potential of humanity and the fragility of even the greatest empires. So, where do we go from here? We've explored the enigma, the challenges, and the mind-bending implications. In the next chapter, we're going to dive deeper into the realm of possibility, exploring some of the most compelling, albeit controversial theories that attempt to reconcile Plato's detailed narrative with our modern understanding of the world. We'll look at the specific sites and speculative evidence that keep the dream of Atlantis alive, and we'll ask, could any of these truly be the legendary city? We've journeyed through the intricate tapestry of Plato's account, the tantalizing details, the philosophical implications, and the colossal paradox that Atlantis presents. We've explored the what, a magnificent empire beyond the Pillars of Hercules, a technologically advanced society that rose and fell in a cataclysmic single day and night. We've even grappled with the why, the Atlanteans' descent into hubris, the moral decay that preceded their watery grave. But now, we must confront the most stubborn, the most frustrating aspect of this entire enigma, the sheer, unyielding silence of the earth. Think about it. A civilization larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined. A naval power that threatened the known world. A city of concentric rings, monumental architecture, and a metal that glowed with a red light. And then, poof, vanished. Not just from the historical record, but seemingly from the geological one too. Plato, through the voice of the Egyptian priests, tells us that after the catastrophe, the area where Atlantis once stood became impassable mud, preventing navigation. This isn't just a poetic flourish, it's a crucial detail. It implies a massive sudden subsidence, a sinking that left behind not an empty ocean floor, but a choked, shallow, unnavigable expanse. Now let's put on our geological hats for a moment. What would it take to make a landmass of that scale disappear in quote 44? We're talking about an event far beyond even the most devastating tsunamis or volcanic eruptions we've ever witnessed. A cataclysm on a planetary scale. For an entire continent, or even a very large island, to simply subside beneath the waves so completely, so swiftly, and leave impassable mud in its wake, defies almost everything we understand about plate tectonics, seismic activity, and oceanography. Consider the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a popular speculative location. This is where tectonic plates diverge, creating new crust, not where massive landmasses suddenly plummet. While volcanic activity and earthquakes are common, the idea of an entire continent-sized chunk of land sinking into the mantle in 24 hours is, frankly, mind-boggling to modern geology. Even if it were a microcontinent, a large island like Greenland, for instance, disappearing so utterly would leave an unmistakable colossal scar on the ocean floor, a geological fingerprint that no amount of time or sediment could fully obscure. And yet, we search, and we find nothing that fits the bill. This isn't to say the Earth is static, far from it. We know of ancient land bridges like Beringia that connected continents during ice ages. We know of islands that have risen and fallen due to volcanic activity, like the famed eruption of Thera, Santorini, around 1600 BCE, which some have tried to link to Atlantis. Thera was a cataclysmic event, wiping out a sophisticated Minoan outpost and creating a massive caldera. It did cause tsunamis and leave behind a layer of ash and pumice. But Thera was a relatively small island, and its destruction, while immense, doesn't align with Plato's description of a vast empire, its specific location, or its timeline. It's a compelling local disaster, but not the global-scale disappearance of Atlantis, so the geological evidence, or rather the lack of it, remains a monumental hurdle for the literal interpretation of Atlantis. It forces us to ask, is Plato's account an exaggeration, a symbolic representation of a smaller, yet still devastating event? Or are we simply looking in the wrong places, with the wrong tools, or with a fundamentally flawed understanding of ancient Earth processes? But the geological challenge is just one piece of the puzzle. Let's talk about that timeline. 10,000 years before Solon, which places Atlantis' destruction around 9590 BCE. Now, this is where it gets genuinely interesting and profoundly disruptive to our conventional understanding of history. What do we picture when we think of 9590 BCE? We think of the tail end of the last ice age. We think of hunter-gatherers, nomadic tribes, rudimentary tools made of stone and bone. We think of early attempts at agriculture, perhaps, but certainly not of Bronze Age technology, monumental architecture, intricate canal systems, or a mighty naval empire capable of conquering vast swathes of the Mediterranean. Our established historical narrative places the rise of complex civilizations, with large-scale architecture, organized governments, written language, and advanced metallurgy, much, much later. The first cities, like Çatalhöyük or Jericho, emerge around 7500–7000 BCE, and they are by comparison modest. The Bronze Age, with its sophisticated metalworking and true empires, doesn't really kick off until around 300 BCE. So, if Atlantis existed in 9590 BCE, it would mean that a highly advanced, technologically sophisticated civilization flourished thousands of years before what we currently consider the dawn of civilization. It would mean that our entire timeline for human development is, to put it mildly, wildly off. It would mean that humanity achieved incredible feats of engineering, navigation, and societal organization during an era we label as Quote 45. Think about the implications. If Atlantis was real, then our understanding of prehistoric man, of the very trajectory of human progress, would need to be completely rewritten. It would suggest that there was a lost golden age, a forgotten zenith of human achievement that was erased from memory and history by a cataclysm of unimaginable scale. It would mean that our ancestors, far from being primitive, were capable of building things we can barely comprehend for that era. And what about the technology itself? Plato speaks of orichalcum, a metal said to be, quote, 46, and described as, quote, 47. We have no definitive archaeological evidence of such a metal from that period, or indeed any period. Is it a mythical metal like adamantium or vibranium? Or is it a lost alloy, a metal whose properties we've yet to rediscover? Some theories suggest it could be a type of brass, an amber alloy, or even electrum, a natural gold-silver alloy, but none truly fit the Kastner's quote 48 description or the implied advanced metallurgical knowledge. Then there are the engineering marvels, the concentric rings of land and water, the massive harbour, the hot and cold spring systems, the monumental temple to Poseidon covered in silver and gold, with a colossal statue of the god himself. This isn't just impressive, it speaks of a profound understanding of hydraulics, urban planning, and resource management. To build such a city, especially one that could harness natural springs and channel water effectively, requires not just labour, but knowledge. Sophisticated knowledge. We're talking about a civilization that, according to Plato, could construct a massive canal system to connect the outer rings to the sea, build bridges, and create an infrastructure that would put many ancient cities to shame. And this, remember, is in 9590 BCE. It's a colossal leap, an almost impossible jump in technological advancement for that era, according to our current historical paradigm. So, we are left with a profound dichotomy. On one hand, the detailed, almost journalistic account from Plato, insistent on its historical truth, transmitted through a chain of renowned wisdom figures, Egyptian priests to Solon to Critias to Plato. On the other hand, the stubborn absence of physical evidence. No geological scars, no archaeological sites, no trace of orichalcum, no other historical accounts that corroborate such a monumental empire existing at that specific disruptive time. How do we reconcile these two seemingly irreconcilable realities? Do we dismiss Plato's account entirely as a philosophical fable, a cautionary tale designed to illustrate the dangers of imperial ambition and moral decay? Many scholars lean this way, finding it easier to accept that a philosopher used a fabricated story to make a point, rather than to believe in a super-advanced civilization that vanished without a trace, defying all our historical and geological expectations. But if it is an allegory, why the extraordinary level of detail? Why the specific names, the precise measurements, the exact timelines, the geographical markers? Why insist on its truthfulness so vehemently? Plato was a master of allegories and myths, and he often presented them as such. With Atlantis, he explicitly stated, "This tale, though it sounds like a legend, is in fact true." That's a powerful statement, isn't it? The search for Atlantis, therefore, isn't just an academic exercise. It's a quest for truth that challenges the very foundations of our historical understanding. It forces us to confront the possibility that our accepted narratives are incomplete, that there are vast chapters of human history that remain unwritten, perhaps even deliberately forgotten. It compels us to consider that the ancients, those we often label as primitive, might have possessed knowledge and capabilities that we are only now beginning to rediscover or even imagine. This is the enduring power of the Atlantis myth. It keeps pushing us to question, to explore, to imagine. It asks us to look beyond the established facts and consider the boundless possibilities of what might have been. It's a ghost of a civilization, haunting our history books, daring us to find it, daring us to rewrite everything we thought we knew. So, we've explored the what and the why not. We've wrestled with the geological silence and the chronological conundrum. But the question still hangs heavy in the air, doesn't it? If Atlantis was real, if it defied all these challenges, then where could it be? Where could such a place hide for millennia from our most advanced tools and our most determined searches? In the next chapter, we will embark on the most intriguing part of our journey, the hunt for Atlantis itself, exploring the most compelling and sometimes outlandish theories for its location, and what each tells us about the enduring human fascination with the lost city. Get ready to dive deep. We've journeyed through the intricate tapestry of Plato's account, tracing the story from the ancient priests of Sais to the wise Solon, and finally to the philosopher himself. We've marvelled at the descriptions of Atlantis, its colossal scale, its engineered capital, the enigmatic gleam of orichalcum, and the tragic arc of its people, from divine virtue to imperial hubris. We've grappled with the central paradox, a meticulously detailed narrative presented as history, yet utterly devoid of conventional proof. Now, we must confront the formidable wall that stands between the legend of Atlantis and its acceptance by mainstream science. It's a wall built not just of skepticism, but of deeply entrenched paradigms, of timelines painstakingly constructed over centuries, and of an understanding of human history that simply has no room for a civilization like Atlantis, existing in the shadows of prehistory. Think about it. The very notion of Atlantis, as Plato describes it, isn't just a missing piece of the puzzle. It's a piece that would fundamentally warp the entire picture we've so carefully assembled. We're talking about an advanced, seafaring, technologically sophisticated empire existing around 9590 BCE. What does that date conjure in your mind? For most, it's the tail end of the last ice age, an era of hunter-gatherers, of nascent agriculture just beginning to stir in a few scattered regions. It's an age of rudimentary tools, of nomadic tribes, of survival against a harsh, untamed world. Our conventional understanding of human progress is a gradual linear ascent, from the Stone Age through the development of agriculture, the first villages, then cities, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and so on. Each step is meticulously documented, supported by archaeological layers, ceramic shards, tool types, and the slow, undeniable accumulation of material culture. The idea of a global superpower, capable of monumental engineering, complex governance, and extensive maritime trade, thriving thousands of years before the pyramids of Egypt, before the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, before the very concept of widespread urbanism, is not just improbable, it's an intellectual earthquake. This is why the scientific community, quite rightly, demands extraordinary evidence for an extraordinary claim. It's not enough to say. Quote 50. Plato also wrote allegories. He crafted myths to convey philosophical truths. So the question isn't just if Atlantis existed, but how it could exist without leaving a single, unambiguous trace that fits our established historical and geological records. What kind of evidence would satisfy this demand? We're talking about hard, irrefutable proof. We'd need archaeological sites, cities, ports, temples that align with Plato's descriptions. We'd need artifacts, tools, weapons, art that showcase an unprecedented level of technology for that era. We'd need inscriptions, written records, or even the remnants of that mysterious orichalcum, verified by scientific analysis. And perhaps most dauntingly, we'd need geological evidence of a massive landmass submerging precisely where Plato placed Atlantis at precisely the time he specified. Consider the geological challenge. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a popular speculative location, is a submarine mountain range, a product of plate tectonics. Continents don't simply, quote 51 into the ocean in a single day and night, unless there's an unprecedented catastrophic event that defies our current understanding of geological processes. While localized subsidence due to earthquakes and tsunamis is possible, the scale described by Plato, an island, des Nian, quote 52, would require a geological event of unimaginable magnitude, one for which we have no verifiable precedent in the Holocene epoch, the last 11,700 years of Earth's history. And yet, we return to Plato's words. Quote 53. He speaks of, quote, 54-4, left behind, preventing navigation to the area. What if this isn't just a poetic flourish, but a literal description of the aftermath? Imagine a cataclysm of such force that it pulverized an entire landmass, burying it under colossal landslides, oceanic sediment and volcanic ash. The very forces that destroyed Atlantis could have simultaneously created its perfect tomb, a shroud of debris and mud so vast and deep that it effectively erased the surface features, leaving behind a chaotic, impassable seabed. The ocean floor, as we know, is a vast, largely unexplored frontier. We have better maps of the surface of Mars than we do of our own deep oceans. The sheer scale and depth make archaeological exploration incredibly difficult and expensive. If Atlantis truly sank into the Atlantic, thousands of feet below the surface, its remains would be subject to immense pressure, corrosive salt water, and the relentless march of geological time, burying it under layers of sediment. What chance would fragile structures, even those built of stone, have against such forces over 12 millennia? This brings us to a compelling, if sobering, thought: the concept of the Great Filter. This idea, often discussed in the context of extraterrestrial life, posits that there might be significant barriers or filters that prevent civilizations from reaching advanced interstellar stages. But what if a great filter exists even within our own planetary history? What if advanced civilizations have risen on Earth, only to be wiped out by natural cataclysms, leaving behind little to no trace? Atlantis, if real, would be the ultimate example of such a filter. It would demonstrate that even monumental achievements in engineering, technology, and social organization are utterly vulnerable to the planet's raw power. It suggests a cyclical nature of civilization, not a linear march of progress, but a series of peaks and valleys, with knowledge and advancement potentially being lost and rediscovered over vast stretches of time. It would force us to confront the terrifying fragility of our own achievements, our own history, and our own collective memory. If Atlantis was real, what does that mean for us here and now? It means our history books are incomplete. It means our understanding of human potential, of human ingenuity, of our very origins, is profoundly flawed. It means we might be living in the shadow of a forgotten golden age, a testament to a level of sophistication we only believe possible in our modern era. It's a realization that is both humbling and exhilarating. Humbling because it exposes the limits of our current knowledge and the arrogance of assuming we know everything about our past. Exhilarating because it opens up a universe of possibilities, challenging us to look beyond the accepted narratives, to question, to explore, and to imagine. It invites us to consider that the myths and legends we dismiss as mere stories might, in fact, be echoes of a truth far grander and more complex than we ever dared to conceive. This isn't just about finding old ruins, it's about finding ourselves. It's about understanding the deep currents of human experience, the rise and fall of empires, the enduring power of knowledge, and the terrifying ease with which it can be lost. If Atlantis was real, it would rewrite not just history, but our very perception of what it means to be human and how far back our journey truly extends. We've explored the challenges, the scientific resistance, the monumental scale of the missing evidence. But what if the evidence isn't missing, merely hidden? What if we've been looking in the wrong places, or with the wrong assumptions? Or what if, as Plato subtly hints, the very nature of its disappearance ensures its continued enigma? In the next chapter, we will dive deeper into the implications of such a discovery, and what clues, however faint, might still exist for those brave enough to seek them. We will ask, if Atlantis was real, what else could be out there? What other lost chapters of humanity's story await our rediscovery? So we've walked the edges of the abyss, haven't we? We've peered into the detailed chasm of Plato's account, weighed the meticulous against the impossible, and felt the tantalizing pull of a world that simply shouldn't be. The legend of Atlantis, as we've seen, isn't just a quaint tale from antiquity. It's a colossal paradox, a ghost in the geological record, and a profound challenge to everything we think we know about our past. But what if we push past the skepticism, past the comfortable confines of established history? What if, for a moment, we allow ourselves to truly entertain the, quote 58, what if Atlantis was real? What would it mean? How exactly would it rewrite history? This isn't just about adding a new chapter to the textbooks. It's about tearing out entire volumes and starting fresh. Think about it. Our current understanding of civilization places the dawn of complex urban societies somewhere around 6,000 to 8,000 years ago, with Mesopotamia and Egypt as the cradles. We speak of hunter-gatherers and rudimentary settlements existing 9,000 to 12,000 years ago, during the Neolithic period. This is a time of stone tools, burgeoning agriculture, and certainly no grand empires or advanced engineering. Now, into this carefully constructed timeline drop Atlantis, a civilization, according to Plato, that flourished 9,000 years before Solon's time, placing its zenith around 9,590 BCE. What does that do to our timeline? It doesn't just nudge it, it shatters it. It pushes back the very concept of advanced civilization by at least 5 millennia. 5,000 years where we believed humanity was still finding its feet, still scratching out a living in small scattered groups, suddenly becomes a canvas for monumental cities, sophisticated governance, and a global naval power. Imagine the implications. Every single historical narrative, every archaeological theory, every anthropological model would have to be re-evaluated. The, quote 59s of humanity, from primitive to complex, from scattered tribes to interconnected empires, would no longer be a linear ascent. Instead, it would reveal a lost peak, a forgotten golden age of ingenuity that predates our most celebrated ancient cultures by thousands of years. We wouldn't just be adding a footnote, we'd be constructing an entirely new prologue to the human story. And it's not just the timeline that would be rewritten, it's the very definition of ancient technology and capability. Plato describes a city of breathtaking scale and sophistication, concentric rings of land and water, massive canals, intricate harbours, monumental architecture, and a mysterious metal, orichalcum, flashing with a red light. This isn't just impressive for 9,590 BCE, it's impressive for any era prior to the Industrial Revolution. Consider the engineering. To construct a city of that magnitude with such precise hydrological control requires an understanding of surveying hydraulics, and construction techniques that we attribute to much later periods. To manage the vast resources required for such a build and to maintain an empire larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined speaks to an administrative and logistical prowess that beggars belief for the era. Where did this knowledge come from? How was it developed? And how, crucially, did it vanish without a trace? If Atlantis was real, then our ancestors, the very people we often picture as struggling against the elements with rudimentary tools, possessed a level of technological and organizational genius that we are only now beginning to fully appreciate through our own modern advancements. It suggests a lost science, a forgotten art of building and living that could potentially offer solutions to some of our contemporary challenges. Think about the sustainable integration of water systems, the use of unique materials, the sheer scale of their infrastructure. It challenges our hubris, doesn't it? Our assumption that we are the pinnacle of human ingenuity. Then there's the question of global connections. If Atlantis was a vast maritime power, dominating the seas beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what influence did it exert on other burgeoning cultures? Did Atlantean ships, perhaps, reach the shores of the Americas, or circumnavigate Africa, leaving behind whispers of advanced knowledge, architectural styles, or even genetic markers that we have yet to properly interpret? Suddenly, the isolated development of civilizations across the globe begins to look less isolated. The striking similarities in ancient myths, the recurring motifs of a great flood or a lost continent, the unexplained megalithic structures found across continents, could these be echoes of a shared past, a diffusion of knowledge from a central powerful source? The diffusionist theories, often dismissed by mainstream archaeology, would suddenly gain immense traction. We would have to reconsider the origins of agriculture, metallurgy, and even writing, asking if these vital developments were truly independent inventions or, perhaps, gifts from a forgotten teacher. And what about the nature of myth itself? If Plato, a philosopher renowned for his pursuit of truth and reason, was relaying a literal account, then where do we draw the line between history and legend? The tales of gods walking among men, of heroes with impossible feats, of cataclysmic events that reshaped the world. How many of these, dismissed as mere allegory or primitive storytelling, might contain kernels of historical truth distorted and embellished over millennia? The very foundation of our understanding of ancient narratives would shift, compelling us to re-examine every myth, every legend, every oral tradition with a new open mind. This is the profound, unsettling beauty of the Atlantis mystery. It forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge, the gaps in our historical record, and the astonishing possibility that our collective memory of the past is far more incomplete than we dare to imagine. The enduring allure of Atlantis isn't just about finding a lost city, it's about finding a lost epoch of human history, a missing piece of the puzzle that could redefine what it means to be human and what we are truly capable of. Why does this mystery persist, despite the overwhelming scientific consensus against it? Why do we, as a global audience, remain so captivated by the ghost of a civilization that supposedly left no trace? Perhaps it's because the idea of Atlantis speaks to something primal within us. It speaks to the human desire for a grander past, a more complex origin story than the one we've been told. It speaks to the intuitive feeling that there are secrets hidden in the deep, knowledge waiting to be rediscovered. It also serves as a potent cautionary tale, doesn't it? Plato's narrative isn't just about a powerful civilization. It's about a powerful civilization that succumbed to its own hubris, its own greed, its own moral decay. The Atlanteans, initially virtuous and wise, became corrupted by their immense wealth and power, leading to their catastrophic downfall. In an era grappling with climate change, global conflicts, and the ethical dilemmas of advanced technology, the story of Atlantis resonates with a chilling relevance. It asks us, are we learning from the mistakes of the past, or are we destined to repeat them? Is our own advanced civilization, with all its technological marvels, on a similar path of self-destruction? The search for Atlantis, then, isn't just an archaeological quest. It's a philosophical journey. It's an exploration of human potential, human fallibility, and the cyclical nature of rise and collapse. It's a challenge to our intellectual humility, forcing us to question the narratives we've inherited and to remain open to possibilities that lie beyond the current paradigms. We've seen the sheer geological implausibility, the lack of a smoking gun, the silence in the deep ocean. Yet, the story endures, fueled by Plato's insistence and the tantalizing implications. In the next chapter, we will delve into the very essence of this struggle, the battle between scientific orthodoxy and the persistent whispers of a lost world. We will explore the arguments against Atlantis as history, and then, perhaps, we will find new ways to challenge those very arguments, pushing the boundaries of what we consider possible. Because if Atlantis was real, it wouldn't just rewrite history, it would redefine our future. So, we've walked through the astounding details, the meticulous accounts, the compelling narrative woven by Plato himself. We've explored the grandeur of Atlantis, its advanced civilization, its moral decline, and its catastrophic end. And yet, the ocean holds its secrets, refusing to yield definitive proof. This colossal paradox, a story so rich in detail, so specific in its claims, yet utterly absent from the archaeological record, leaves us suspended in a state of profound uncertainty. But here's the thing, isn't it? The absence of proof is not in itself proof of absence. It's a challenge. It's a dare issued by history, by myth, by the very depths of the ocean itself. And humanity, ever the intrepid explorer, has never been one to shy away from such a dare. The search for Atlantis, therefore, isn't just an archaeological endeavour. It's a testament to our insatiable curiosity, our enduring hope that there are still grand secrets left to uncover, secrets that could fundamentally reshape everything we think we know about ourselves. Think about it. Why does this legend persist with such magnetic force? Why, after millennia, do we still find ourselves drawn to the story of a lost continent swallowed by the waves? It's more than just a good tale. It's the tantalizing whisper of a forgotten past, a premonition of a future we might yet face, a mirror reflecting our own aspirations and our own potential for hubris. The search for Atlantis, then, becomes a journey into the uncharted territories of both the earth and the human imagination. Where do we even begin to look for something that supposedly vanished over 11,000 years ago? Plato, our primary guide, gave us one crucial geographical clue: beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Today, we universally interpret the Pillars of Hercules as the Strait of Gibraltar, the narrow gateway between the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. This single phrase has sent countless researchers adventurers and dreamers scanning the vast enigmatic expanse of the Atlantic. But the Atlantic is immense, truly unfathomable in its scope. It's a world unto itself, a realm of crushing pressures and eternal darkness, largely unexplored. Pinpointing a lost continent within its watery embrace is like searching for a single grain of sand on an endless beach, blindfolded. Yet theories abound, each one attempting to reconcile Plato's descriptions with geological possibilities and occasional intriguing anomalies. One of the most popular and visually striking theories points to the volcanic island of Santorini, or what was once the island of Thera in the Aegean Sea. You've seen the images, a crescent-shaped caldera, the remnants of a colossal eruption that occurred around 1600 BCE, devastating the Minoan civilization. The sudden, cataclysmic destruction, the advanced culture, Minoans, and the circular shape of the caldera seem to echo elements of Plato's account. It's a compelling fit at first glance. But here's where the details diverge. The timeline is off by thousands of years, and geographically it's firmly within the Mediterranean, not beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Furthermore, the sheer scale of Atlantis described by Plato, quote, 64, dwarfs even the original Thera. So while Santorini offers a powerful visual metaphor for a lost civilization, it doesn't quite align with Plato's specifics. Then we venture further west, into the very heart of the Atlantic, where other intriguing possibilities emerge. The Azores, the Canary Islands, Madeira. These volcanic archipelagos rise dramatically from the ocean floor, remnants of ancient geological activity. Could they be the mountain peaks of a submerged continent? Their location, squarely in the Atlantic, fits Plato's geographical hint much better. Seismic activity in this region is constant, and the idea of a landmass sinking due to massive geological shifts is not entirely far-fetched. Imagine, what if these islands are just the visible tips of a much larger sunken landmass? It's a breathtaking thought, a true test of our understanding of plate tectonics and ancient geography. Moving across the Atlantic, we encounter another fascinating, albeit controversial candidate, the Bimini Road in the Bahamas. Discovered in 1968, this underwater formation consists of thousands of precisely laid limestone blocks, forming a remarkably straight, mile-long path beneath just a few feet of water. Is it a natural geological phenomenon, or is it a man-made structure, a remnant of a lost harbour or road from a bygone era? If it is man-made, its age, estimated to be several millennia old, would place it firmly in a period when established history claims humanity was far from capable of such monumental construction. The famed psychic Edgar Cayce even predicted the discovery of Atlantean ruins in the Bimini area in the late 1960s, adding another layer of mystique to this enigmatic site. Could this be a fragment, a distant outpost of the Atlantean Empire? The evidence is hotly debated, but the sheer visual impact of the Bimini Road continues to fuel the imaginations of Atlantean seekers. And what about the deep ocean itself? Modern technology has granted us unprecedented access to the ocean floor. Sonar mapping, remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, submersibles, and satellite imagery now allow us to peer into the abyss with a clarity unimaginable even a few decades ago. We are discovering entirely new ecosystems, strange geological formations, and even shipwrecks thousands of years old. Could an ancient city, buried under miles of sediment and water, be waiting for us? The challenge is immense. The ocean floor is scarred with trenches littered with seamounts and vast beyond comprehension. Finding a lost city there would require an almost impossible stroke of luck, or a highly targeted search based on truly compelling evidence. This leads us to the less conventional, but equally intriguing theories. Some researchers have suggested the Rishat structure in Mauritania, often called the Eye of the Sahara, as a possible location. This enormous circular geological formation, visible from space, strikingly resembles Plato's description of Atlantis's concentric city plan. It has a central island, multiple rings, and evidence of ancient water channels. However, it's in the middle of a desert, not in the ocean. Proponents argue that the Sahara was once a lush, watery environment, and that a cataclysmic event could have caused a shift. While it doesn't fit the swallowed by the sea narrative literally, it speaks to the enduring power of Plato's description to spark connections in unexpected places. The pursuit of Atlantis isn't just about finding a physical location. It's about piecing together a puzzle with missing pieces, challenging established timelines, and questioning our very understanding of human capabilities in the ancient world. If Atlantis were real, if we were to find incontrovertible evidence of a civilization of that scale and sophistication existing over 11,000 years ago, the implications would be nothing short of revolutionary. Imagine the sheer audacity of it. We would have to completely rewrite our history books. The timeline of human technological and architectural advancement would be thrown into disarray. The idea that hunter-gatherers were the sole inhabitants of the earth at that time would be shattered. We would be forced to confront the possibility that humanity has experienced cycles of advanced civilization followed by catastrophic collapse, far more profound than we currently acknowledge. What other knowledge, what other technologies, what other philosophies might have been lost to the sands of time and the depths of the ocean? The discovery of Atlantis would validate Plato's account, elevating him from a philosopher-allegorist to a meticulous historian of a forgotten age. It would validate the ancient Egyptian priests as keepers of truly profound historical records, and it would force us to reconsider every other, quote, 66 and quote, 67, as potentially containing kernels of historical truth. This isn't just a quest for ruins, it's a quest for identity. It's about understanding our true origins, our potential, and the fragility of even the greatest civilizations. The story of Atlantis serves as a potent warning, a reminder that even immense power and technological prowess can be undone by moral decay and the wrath of nature. It teaches us that history is not a linear progression, but perhaps a cyclical dance of creation and destruction, remembrance and forgetting. The ocean floor remains largely unmapped, a vast alien landscape beneath the waves. We have explored more of the moon's surface than we have our own planet's deep oceans. What wonders, what ancient cities, what lost civilizations might still be waiting there, shrouded in perpetual darkness, preserved by the cold, silent embrace of the deep. The search for Atlantis continues, driven by powerful currents of scientific curiosity, historical intrigue, and the enduring human desire to know. It's a challenge to conventional wisdom, a beacon of possibility, and the ultimate archaeological prize. In the next chapter, we're going to dive even deeper into some of the most compelling pieces of, quote, 60 Thus, and the extraordinary claims made by those who believe Atlantis is not just real, but that its secrets are closer to being revealed than you might ever imagine. We'll explore the tantalizing whispers that have persisted through the ages, guiding a new generation of explorers to the edge of what we thought was possible. And so, we stand at the precipice of a colossal paradox, don't we? On one side, we have Plato's astonishingly detailed narrative, a continent-sized island, a technologically advanced civilization, a precise timeline, a cataclysmic end. On the other, the profound, almost deafening silence of the archaeological record. No sunken cities, no orichalcum artifacts, no geological scars that definitively scream, Atlantis was here. It's a chasm so wide, so deep, that it seems impossible to bridge. Yet, here we are, still talking about it, still dreaming about it, still, in our deepest curiosities, wondering, what if? Why does this story, this ghost of a civilization, refuse to be relegated to the dusty shelves of pure fiction? Why, even in the face of scientific skepticism and geological impossibilities, does Atlantis continue to grip our collective imagination with such an unyielding hold? This isn't just about a lost city, it's about a lost possibility. It's about the tantalizing idea that our understanding of history, of human potential, of the very fabric of ancient times, might be fundamentally incomplete. Think about it. We are creatures of story. We thrive on narrative, on the epic sweep of rise and fall, on the cautionary tales that whisper across millennia. And Atlantis, whether fact or fable, is arguably one of the most compelling narratives ever conceived. It speaks to something primal within us, the allure of the unknown, the romance of a golden age lost to the mists of time, the humbling reminder that even the greatest empires are fragile, susceptible to the whims of nature or the corrosive rot of hubris. For those who lean towards its historical reality, Atlantis represents a profound challenge to the established order. It's the ultimate what if that, if proven true, would dismantle textbooks, rewrite timelines, and force us to confront the possibility of ancient technologies and societal complexities far beyond what we currently acknowledge. Imagine the sheer audacity of a civilization flourishing nearly 12,000 years ago, building wonders that rivaled, perhaps even surpassed, those of classical antiquity, and then vanishing without a trace. It's a narrative that appeals to the rebel in us, the part that questions authority, that suspects there's more to the story than what we've been told. It fuels the desire to uncover hidden truths, to pull back the curtain on a secret history. This isn't just about finding a sunken city. It's about validating a different way of seeing the past. It's about the profound implications for human origins, for the cyclical nature of civilization, for the idea that knowledge and power can be lost as easily as they are gained. If Atlantis was real, then humanity has a far longer, far more complex and far more mysterious past than we currently dare to imagine. The very definition of ancient would be stretched, twisted, and reshaped. We would have to ask ourselves, what else have we forgotten? What other chapters of our story lie buried, waiting to be rediscovered? But what if Plato, the meticulous philosopher, the seeker of truth, was indeed crafting an allegory? If that were the case, what profound truths was he trying to convey? We know Plato, we understand his method. He often used myths and parables to illustrate complex philosophical concepts. His dialogues are rich with allegorical journeys, from the famous cave to the chariot of the soul. So if Atlantis is not a historical account, then it must be one of the most elaborate, most detailed, and most enduring allegories in human history. And if it is allegory, then its power is no less diminished. In fact, it might even be amplified, because then Atlantis becomes a mirror reflecting our own human condition. It becomes a timeless warning, a universal lesson etched into the very fabric of our myths. Consider the core themes of the Atlantean narrative. The perils of hubris. The Atlanteans, initially noble and virtuous, descended into greed, avarice, and imperial ambition. They sought to conquer, to dominate, to extend their power beyond their rightful bounds. This is a classic tragic flaw, one that resonates through countless tales of human downfall. The corruption of power. With immense wealth and advanced technology, the Atlanteans lost their moral compass. Their divine heritage, once a source of strength and wisdom, became an excuse for tyranny. This speaks to the eternal struggle to maintain virtue in the face of overwhelming power. Environmental catastrophe. This story culminates in a cataclysmic destruction, a single day and night of earthquakes and floods that swallowed an entire continent. Is this a literal geological event, or a symbolic representation of the consequences of humanity's imbalance with nature, or perhaps a divine judgment upon their moral decay? In an age grappling with climate change and ecological crises, this aspect of the Atlantis myth feels chillingly relevant. The ideal state versus the corrupt state. Plato's Republic explores the concept of the ideal state. The Atlantis narrative, with its initial virtue and subsequent corruption, serves as a powerful counterpoint. It illustrates how even a divinely founded, technologically advanced society can fall from grace, offering a vivid contrast to the virtuous, though less technologically advanced, ancient Athens that stood against them. So, whether you believe Atlantis existed as a physical place or as a profound philosophical construct, its impact is undeniable. It has shaped our understanding of what Oca's quote 72 Jas could be. It has fueled countless scientific expeditions, inspired works of literature, art, and film, and even influenced the very language we use when we speak of utopian ideals or catastrophic downfalls. From Francis Bacon's New Atlantis to modern science fiction epics, the ghost of Atlantis continues to cast a long shadow over our creative and intellectual landscapes. The enduring fascination with Atlantis isn't just about sensationalism. It's about the deep-seated human need to understand our past, to learn from it, and to project our hopes and fears onto it. It's about our perennial quest for knowledge, for meaning, and for the answers to the biggest questions about who we are and where we come from. We've explored the detailed blueprint Plato laid out, the geographical clues, the technological marvels, and the moral decay that led to its demise. We've grappled with the scientific arguments against its existence and the fervent belief that it must be out there, somewhere. But perhaps, just perhaps, we've been looking for the wrong kind of evidence. Or perhaps we've been looking in the wrong places, or with the wrong definitions of proof. What if the evidence isn't a sunken city with perfectly preserved buildings? What if it's something more subtle, more elusive, woven into the very fabric of ancient myths and oral traditions across cultures? What if the impassable mud Plato spoke of isn't just a physical barrier, but a metaphorical one, obscuring not only a sunken land but also a forgotten chapter of human consciousness? This is where the journey truly becomes intriguing, isn't it? Because if we expand our definition of what constitutes evidence, if we open our minds to possibilities beyond conventional archaeology and geology, then the mystery of Atlantis takes on an entirely new dimension. We move beyond the simple dichotomy of real or not real and step into a realm where ancient wisdom, esoteric knowledge, and even collective memory might hold clues that our modern scientific instruments are not yet equipped to detect. In the next chapter, we will venture into these less conventional avenues. We will examine theories that challenge the mainstream, explore the tantalizing hints found in other ancient texts and cultural traditions, and consider the possibility that Atlantis, in some form, has left an imprint on humanity that transcends physical ruins. We will dare to ask, if Atlantis did exist, and if it did vanish, how might its memory persist, even if the stones themselves are silent? How might a lost civilization leave behind a legacy that is not tangible, but profound, influencing the very myths and symbols that underpin our understanding of the world? Prepare yourselves, because the search for Atlantis is about to take us into uncharted waters, far beyond the Pillars of Hercules and deep into the human psyche. We've journeyed through the labyrinthine corridors of Plato's dialogues, pieced together the breathtaking descriptions of Atlantis, and grappled with the profound paradox of its meticulously detailed existence against the deafening silence of archaeological proof. We've even sailed the treacherous waters of speculative geography, from the Aegean to the mid-Atlantic ridge, chasing the ghost of a civilization that by all accounts should not have been. But now, let's pivot. Let's move beyond the where and the what, and truly confront the implications. Because if Atlantis was real, if it existed as Plato described, a technologically advanced, ethically complex maritime empire thriving over 11 millennia ago, then we're not just talking about a lost city. We are talking about a complete, radical, and utterly revolutionary rewrite of human history. Think about it. We teach our children that civilization, as we understand it, began with the Sumerians in Mesopotamia, roughly 6,000 years ago. We speak of the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, a gradual linear progression from hunter-gatherer societies to agrarian communities, then to villages, cities, and eventually empires. Our timelines are neat, our evolutionary paths clearly delineated, but Atlantis shatters that entire framework. Imagine a civilization not just with sophisticated architecture and complex social structures, but with advanced engineering, material science, and possibly even energy systems that defy what we consider possible for that era. Plato speaks of concentric canals, harbours capable of housing 1,000 ships, hot and cold spring systems piped throughout the city, and buildings adorned with orichalcum, a metal described as, quote, 77, more precious than gold, and possibly a conductor or energy source of incredible power. This isn't just a village with mud huts. This is a metropolis, a marvel of ancient ingenuity, operating at a level that, in our current historical understanding, wouldn't be achieved for another 8,000 years. What does just quote 78 truly mean in this context? It's not just about building bigger, better, faster. It's about a fundamental understanding of physics, of chemistry, of engineering principles that we are only now, in the 21st century, beginning to fully grasp ourselves. If Atlanteans harnessed orichalcum for energy, what kind of energy was it? Was it a form of geothermal power, amplified? Was it something akin to piezoelectricity, or perhaps even a precursor to what we now call free energy? The very concept pushes the boundaries of our accepted historical narratives. Consider the sheer scale of their infrastructure. The construction of those concentric walls, alternating between land and sea, some faced with brass, some with tin, and the central acropolis shimmering with orichalcum. This implies not only immense labour, but also highly organised planning, sophisticated tools, and an understanding of metallurgy and construction on a level far beyond what we attribute to the Stone Age. We're talking about massive stone blocks, precise cuts, hydraulic systems, and possibly even methods of levitation or anti-gravity that allowed them to manipulate materials that would be impossible for primitive tools. And then there's the catastrophic end. Plato is unequivocal. In a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared in the depths of the sea. This wasn't a gradual decline. This wasn't a slow erosion by the tides of history. This was an instantaneous cataclysmic event. Earthquakes and floods, he says, swallowed the entire landmass, leaving behind impassable mud in its wake. Now, let's dissect that. Quote, 81. This isn't just a sunken island. This suggests a geological upheaval so immense that it not only submerged a continent-sized landmass, but fundamentally altered the ocean floor, creating a vast, perpetual obstacle to navigation. What kind of event could possibly achieve this? Our planet, we are told, is subject to gradual geological processes, plate tectonics, continental drift, volcanic activity. While violent, these events typically manifest over longer timescales or in localized though devastating ways. For an entire landmass, larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined, to vanish in a single day and night demands an explanation that goes beyond conventional geology. Could it have been a supervolcanic eruption, dwarfing even the likes of Krakatoa or Tambora, triggering massive tsunamis and seismic shifts that literally fractured the continental shelf? Or perhaps a colossal asteroid or comet impact, sending shockwaves through the Earth's crust, causing massive land displacement and oceanic deluges. Such an event would not only submerge Atlantis, but would undoubtedly leave profound global scars. Scars that we might interpret today as the geological anomalies or unexplained features of our deep oceans. And what about the, quote, 84 all? This detail is crucial. It suggests not just deep water, but a vast, choked expanse, perhaps a result of pulverized landmass, volcanic ash, and sediment churned up by the cataclysm, creating a perpetual hazard for ancient mariners. It's a detail that lends an eerie credibility to Plato's account, describing a specific, lasting consequence that resonates with geological possibilities. If such an event occurred, and if it wiped out an advanced civilization, what does that say about the fragility of our own existence? What does it say about the cyclical nature of history, where great civilizations rise, achieve unimaginable heights, and then are erased from the face of the earth, leaving barely a whisper? It challenges our very notion of progress, suggesting that perhaps humanity has experienced golden ages and dark ages, not just once, but multiple times, with each reset wiping the slate clean and forcing us to begin anew. This isn't just a story about a lost city, it's a profound cautionary tale. Plato's narrative, remember, emphasizes the Atlanteans' moral decay. Initially virtuous descendants of Poseidon, they gradually succumb to greed, hubris, and imperial ambition, Their technological prowess, once a tool for progress, became an instrument of domination. Was their destruction, then, a natural consequence of their moral failings, a divine judgment as some interpret it, or simply a tragic coincidence of their advanced society existing at a time of immense planetary instability? The implications are staggering. If Atlantis existed, it means human history is far older, far richer, and far more complex than we currently acknowledge. It means there were periods of advanced knowledge and technological sophistication that predate our accepted timelines by millennia. It means that the very foundations of our understanding of human development, from technology to philosophy, could be built upon a partial, incomplete record. And if such an advanced civilization was swallowed whole, what became of its knowledge? Did it vanish completely, leaving no trace? Or did fragments of it survive, carried by refugees, whispered in legends, encoded in ancient myths from cultures across the globe? Could the sudden, inexplicable appearance of sophisticated astronomical knowledge in ancient Egypt, or advanced architectural techniques in pre-Incan South America, or the mysterious Piri race map depicting Antarctica before its, quote 85, be echoes of a much older, lost global civilization? These are not just rhetorical questions. These are the threads that, if pulled, could unravel our entire historical tapestry. The search for Atlantis, therefore, isn't just an archaeological quest. It's a philosophical and existential one. It forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge, the biases in our historical narratives, and the astonishing possibility that we are living on a planet with a past far more enigmatic and awe-inspiring than we dare to imagine. The ghost of a civilization that we speak of isn't just a whisper from Plato's pages. It's a colossal paradox that challenges us to look beyond the established, to question the accepted, and to open our minds to the profound possibility that the story of humanity is far from fully told. In the next chapter, we will delve deeper into these whispers, these echoes across cultures, and explore how the Atlantean legacy might have permeated the very fabric of our ancient world, shaping myths, inspiring legends, and perhaps even leaving behind subtle clues, waiting for us to finally put the pieces together. The journey, you see, is only just beginning,